Hey everyone, Shaedow here, and welcome to another Marvel Contest of Champions video. So I'm going through Uncollected, and what you're seeing here is my final fight against Sentry. Now, this is my first time fighting Sentry. I've seen maybe one video, so you guys are getting to experience my trials with him, trying to learn his animations. I noticed that his L1 was pretty easy to evade. That one right there, his L2, it came at me pretty fast, so I was like, what in the world? But I was getting used to it, and as you can see, I'm also running suicides, so recoil is kicking my butt a bit. I'm only running half suicide, so I'm not running liquid courage, only double edge. Now here's something that was driving me nuts. Look at him. He refuses to throw that L1. I am doing all I could. Look at this. I'm trying to get him to throw that L1. He's now backed me up against the corner, and that was it. So I just said, you know what? I'm gonna die. He wouldn't throw his L1, so let me throw my L3, get as much damage in as I can. So I threw my L3. As you see, he's stunned. I go in, and I wanted to get another combo, but I couldn't. And of course, he throws his L3, and we all know what's going to happen there.
Fatality.
So, Blade is down, and I didn't feel that I did too badly for my first attempt. So I'm feeling pretty confident now. So I go in with Iceman, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to take him down. I have not used any revives up till this point, okay? So I'm pretty confident. And I was going to try to push him all the way to his L3 because of, you know, Iceman's ice armor. And then that happened. I don't know why all of a sudden my block just stopped. He threw his L2 and broke my block. I don't know what was going on. So all I have now left is magic. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little nervous now. As you can see, I'm getting used to that L1 and what it takes to evade it. So I'm like, okay, let me try to get to her L2 and we should be okay. So I'm still trying to figure out his animations. Alright, boom. He just wrecks me. I don't know. And now she's at her L3, so I can't, you know, lock him down. So I'm like, okay, maybe this will kill him, you know. Alright. And I saw that little piece and I was like, son of a, I was like, okay, that's alright. We should be able to do this. Okay, I evaded that, and I'm like, this should finish him off, this combo. No, he holds on. I'm like, what does it take to kill this guy? Boom! Finally, he goes down. I didn't use any revives during this quest here. So, I feel pretty good about my first pass through fighting Sentry. Next, we go through the final chapter and Void. Okay, onward to Void. But first we have a few pesky fights to get through. You guys could see who I brought in, and I chose to use mainly Ghost Rider because he's a beast, especially with that Blade synergy. He is my MVP in Alliance Quest, and you'll see why he's my MVP here as well. Now, I'm fighting Storm, and there's not really a whole lot to fighting Storm. Bait out her L1 or her L2, I can evade either one, avoid pushing her to her L3. As far as Ghost Rider goes, you want to put, you know, as many judgments as you can on her, fire off the L3, which also locks her down, gives a power lock. And right after this L3 is done, you'll see that when I start hitting her, as long as that judgment debuff is on her from his L3, she's not gaining any power. So now's the time to really go in. If you have not already, you can fire off your heavy, and because there's a bunch of judgments on her, it'll last a really long time. But what you saw right there is I waited a little too long and I fired off his heavy after they had all fallen off. But as you can see, it didn't really matter. He still finished the fight with pretty much full health. Ghost Rider is a beast. Next fight is against Spider-Gwen, my little cutie. Yes, I know, she gets a lot of hate, but I like her. And she even got buffed a little bit. Didn't make her any kind of a god tier champion or anything, but she's not quite as bad as her reputation would have you believe. Fighting her is pretty straightforward. I like to bait out her L2 and of course avoid pushing her to her L3. Her L1, although it doesn't do any damage, can be very annoying when she fires that off, because you then have to be careful with all of that crazy evading that she will do. Other than that, the fight is pretty straightforward and no problem for Ghost Rider. As you can see, I fire off his L3, which power locks her, and then I just go in on her. This time I got it before the buffs ran out, and watch how long his regen lasts because of that. This is pretty much maximum uptime, I believe. I may have missed one judgment, so it may not be the maximum, but it's pretty long, long enough for my purposes anyway. And as you can see, he had no problem.
Finish him.
And Spider-Gwen is down. I'm so sorry I had to do that to you, girl, but it's alright. You sleep for a little bit. Alright, so the next fight up is against Karnak, and I don't know what to say about Karnak. I mean, I've seen videos where he was really good at one time, taking down Winter Soldier in Realm of Legends in a pretty good amount of time, but that's not the Karnak that we're facing today. Fighting him is very easy as well. Bait out his L1 or his L2, just like with Storm. I can evade either one. They're pretty easy to evade. As you see there, I waited, baited out that one, throw Ghost Rider's L3, power lock him. Not that it really mattered all that much, but it does put another judgment on him. Get that heavy off to get that extra long health regen buff, and then just pretty much go to town. Continue baiting out his L1. If you don't manage to get his L1 out of him, bait his L2. Pretty simple, and the fights are going pretty quickly.
Uh-oh.
And Karnak is down. So you can see how Ghost Rider is finishing these fights with near to full health, saving me lots of items. Next up is Blue Cyclops. This is the 90s version of Cyclops. I remember him. That is the version that I watched when I was a kid. Anyway, I used to hate fighting him before I learned to evade, but now his L1 or his L2 are pretty easy for me to evade. His L2 is a little bit easier, mainly because he does a little bit extra before it, so you have a little time. See all that? Right there gives you a little bit extra to time your evade of his beam. The first one, his L1, doesn't give you a whole lot of time, so you have to really pay attention to his head movements. But when possible, I like to push him to his L2 so that I can pretty much evade it easily. And then I fire off his L3, just like I do in the other fights. Power lock him down, then try to fire off his heavy, just like that. And then just pretty much go to town. Got a little intercept in there, and that's pretty much it. Just keep beating him down, beating him down. That health regen is a pretty long one, so it should last near to the end of the fight. And that's Cyclops down for the count. Next up is Yondu. Now, I like Yondu. I don't always like fighting Yondu, and I know a lot of people have problems with fighting Yondu. So you guys are going to see how to fight Yondu. Mainly what you want to do is bait out his specials. So already you've seen me bait out his heavy as well as his L1. And you can see I'm baiting out his L1 there. It has 3 parts. Okay, that's his heavy right there, and it only has 2 parts. So you dodge that, and you gotta wait for that 3rd one, or else you're gonna get clobbered. Other than that, that's it. Now, Ghost Rider, you know, is bleed immune, so he is the perfect person to fight Yondu. Also, Iceman, any bleed immune champion, because since Yondu can bleed you even when you're blocking, that can really cause some issues. But as you see here, as long as I stick to the game plan, I should be okay. Now, see, some of those blocked hits could have caused him to bleed if he wasn't bleed immune. And let me tell you, that is really annoying. Alright, so that's pretty much it. You bait out the L1 when you can. Now with Yondu, you really do not want to push him to his L2. Alright, so like with some of them, like with Storm and Cyclops and Karnak, it didn't matter whether it was his L1 or his L2, you could bait out either one and evade it. I have not mastered evading Yondu's L2, so I didn't want to see that L2 at all. So that's why you see me here baiting, you know, like my life depended on it. And then I fire off that L3, and pretty much that's gonna be all she wrote. He's power locked, and I'm just gonna go in and finish
him.
Alright, so things are going perfectly so far. Ghost Rider is a beast. I have not even died yet. So next up is Black Panther Civil War. And I went into this fight, and I know how to fight him. As you can see, you can stun him as long as he doesn't have that armor up buff on. And so I'm just going in, knowing that I'm gonna take him down without any trouble. But my cockiness got me. So I go in like this, and I wasn't paying attention, and reflexes took over, and it's all she wrote. You usually do not get a second chance. My reflexes parried him when I knew I shouldn't have. But that's okay. So next I come in with Iceman. That was my first death for this entire run, and I'm a little bit humbled now, and I'm fighting him the way that I know to fight him. So now you see his armor up is activated, and so I am not about to parry him while that is, you know, active. Alright, so right here, what I'm trying to do is you either push him to his L2, which is very easy to avoid, or you keep your distance and bait out that L1. So as you see there, you know, I should have been able to keep my distance a little more so I wouldn't even have gotten hit at all. You know, no contact made with that L2, but it is what it is. I push him again to his L2, and then I try to bait it out. Got that, and then I just go in again, and of course with Iceman, I try to hold his L3 just in case I need it. You know, like if I wasn't able to bait that L1 out properly, or I got hit by it, which sometimes I do, I would need that L3 so I can get my ice armor back. But didn't need it, and finish him off with the L3.
Godlike.
And that is how you fight Black Panther Civil War. Alright, so we're coming up to the final fight. Void is next. Now, so far, I've had a pretty easy run. Ghost Rider pretty much took me through the entire thing. He could have taken me all the way, but for my cockiness. So I'm examining the nodes. I have never fought Void in any capacity, and I really haven't seen anyone fighting him. So this is my first time against him. So of course I brought in Blade, and I'm just trying to learn this. You guys are going to see my process. You're going to see my learning experience. Now, you see how I got wrecked. This is because I was running suicides. Even though I was only running double edge. Do not go in to fight Void with suicides. Alright, so I remember hearing that, but the lesson did not strike home until I had these encounters. I had to test it out for myself, like a knucklehead. So I brought in Iceman. Since he's double immune, I figured I should be okay. But of course, I'm still learning how to fight Void. Around this time, AW has started, AQ has started, and my phone has gotten very hot and started to lag. So I'm having to deal with trying to learn the fight, fighting the lag, dealing with some shenanigans that you'll see here, and I was already on edge because they were waiting for me in AQ. So I'm trying to hurry things up, and you guys will see just what's been happening. Look at this. I'm still running suicides at this point. Okay, so hadn't learned my lesson. Look at that. He hadn't even touched me. I was already knocked out. So he's not beating me at this point. Suicides are beating me. Now, I knew that Archangel was probably going to be the best person. That's what I heard. And so now I turned off suicides before I went in with Archangel. All right, so now I'm like, okay, I gave in, turned the suicides off. Let's see, how I do. Now look at that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but that was lag from the phone. So I'm already having a hard enough time. I remember that you had to get to like 10, 20, 30 hit combo to get off that degen. Just a lot of stuff to try and, keep track of, and this is, again, my first time fighting Void. So I'm trying to learn his animations. Now, what you just saw right there, this happens to me periodically. I don't know whether it's because of the lag or, the game glitching out on me, what's going on, but my block kept getting broken, and I started to get really upset. I'm trying to go pretty quick here so that I could get these guys out and start up AW and Alliance Quest. And this was just taking even longer than I thought it should. So I was getting pretty tilted, every time I died here. But I just kept going. I had not died all the way up to Void, except for, that Ghost Rider against Black Panther Civil War. But I had not used any revives. So I thought I was doing pretty well. Now, that one right there, that death was just me not being familiar with his animations. And so I tried to attack before his animation was actually completed. All right, so it's a mixture of me making mistakes, but like that right there, I can't even tell you what happened. Just drives me nuts. And of course, when my health is low, those things are doing quite a bit of damage, and I don't have the health to take that. And since I don't know the animations, I'm not evading all that well. So I put Archangel aside and I said, okay, let's go in with Iceman because he can take a lot more damage. Alright, so that's a really long animation there. But I'm getting a little bit more of a feel for it. I pushed him to his L3. And I was like, okay, now we're going to test and see if his ice armor is going to help him survive. Not like the Collector. And yep, it does. So I'm like, okay, well, I should be good pushing him to his L3 and then just go in and go ham on him. But just too much to try to keep track of. That debuff and just, I'm not one that likes Bane, but I learned to fight Bane, fairly decently. But, this is very similar to Bane, but I don't know. I'm just not used to it yet, I guess. But anyway, I went back to Archangel, and you can see here, this is all block damage. Just look at how much block damage he took. So, it's getting pretty salty, in this corner of the woods here. I was just like, you know what? This is really getting me upset. And before I throw my phone, I'm going to give it another try with Archangel. But look at that. I don't know what is going on, but it happened more than one time. And so I'm just like, okay, you know what? That looked like almost an exact duplicate of the last encounter. So I said, all right, screw it. I'm going back in with Blade. You can see I gave him, quite a bit of health potions. and I said, okay, now you're gonna face Blade. And honestly, I know Archangel should have been, you know, the go-to. That's what I've heard, but I had a whole lot of a better time with Blade. And when I go through this 100%, which I will be doing, I'm definitely going to bring Blade. I'll probably also bring Hulk as well. All right.
Godlike.
So as you saw, Blade was able to take him down. Blade is a bad boy. And that is my first run, first completion of Uncollected difficulty. So guys, if you like the video, please consider smashing that like button. It really helps me out. If you have not subscribed already, please consider giving me a subscription. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this video. And you guys have a blessed day.